current conundrum facing Oleksandr Usyk. Are you across that subject, Spence?
Yeah, I am across it. I think that Oleksandr Usyk is looking for another dance partner, who I believe is going to be Daniel Dubois. I think that fight happens next, and with the WBO recently stating that, they want him to step up and fight somebody else, I believe that he will vacate that WBO title because they wanted him to fight Joseph Parker. I believe that title, he will fight Dubois. The WBO, then Parker will be elevated from interim into world champion. Anthony Joshua boxes Joseph Parker for the WBO title, and the winner then boxes again for the undisputed. That's the route I see.
You've got it all worked out, haven't you?
I have.
Oleksandr Usyk wants 2 more fights in his career, and I believe the last one he wants, if possible, to fight in the Ukraine. So if that is feasible within the next year or two. But I think Daniel Dubois is the fight that makes sense for Usyk. Obviously, the rematch, commercially, it does. That does, obviously, fall on Joseph Parker's sort of sorry shoulders almost. Like, we love Joseph Parker. He's done everything right. Fantastic form under Andy Lee. Beats Piccoli at short notice. And he deserves the opportunity. However, I agree with Spencer. I think he might end up fighting AJ. I did a sort of round robin with fans in Liverpool on Saturday night, and most people felt that Parker deserved the opportunity.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, where do you think? I mean, ultimately, the argument raged that he can't be rewarded by the dropping out for Daniel Dubois through no fault of his own because he wasn't well, by getting a fight against Piccoli and then sort of being shuffled back into a pack. And then, of course, the more nuanced argument gets put forward, which is, well, it was a voluntary defence, and them's the rub. I mean, where are you on the idea that Usyk should be fighting Parker in this instance rather than Dubois? Because we've seen Undisputed, and we're not going to see Undisputed again. Do you think Parker should be getting up? Put aside his roadmap, which may or may not happen. The next tangible opportunity is for someone to fight Usyk for a belt. Do you not think it should be Parker?
In boxing terms, yes.
Yeah.
Joe Parker deserves the opportunity to become that two-weight or two-time champion, WBO way back, and now he's reinvigorated his career, and it's fantastic to see. However, the Dubois rematch makes more commercial sense because of what happened last time, because of the, in quotes, low blow, and also because Daniel's on phenomenal form. He pulled out through illness in Riyadh, obviously at those 2 days' notice, and now they reset, and I believe that they'll make the Usyk-Dubois fight. I think that...
So do I.
Yeah, it does make more sense for the casual fans. Yep. I think it sells out here.
So in your theory, the belts get broken up because the WBA have called them mandatory.
WBO,
right?
yeah.
WBO,
yeah.
sorry, yeah. And are you suggesting, in your theory, that it becomes a vacant belt that ultimately Joseph Parker assumes because he's the interim champion?
No,
or he has to fight for it?
WBO interim champion means if that title becomes vacated,
instantaneously?
he gets,
he doesn't have to fight for it.
So he's now WBO champion.
So he then suffers from the Daniel Dubois curse,
yes,
which is actually fighting Hrgović was actually really a world title fight rather than he didn't get the belt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so he doesn't win the belt, Joseph Parker.
No, he gets elevated,
awarded. So he becomes that two-time heavyweight champion.
That's the idea of the interims. That's how it works. That if this situation happens, he gets elevated straight to WBO champion.
But it is odd because you really want Joe Parker to fight for that world title. But he's going to grant it, and I guess he'll defend against AJ. I mean, then AJ could become a 3-time heavyweight champion.
I mean, this interim nonsense is just a load of old nonsense, really, isn't it? I mean, I always find myself struggling with the idea that people get introduced into a ring as a world champion with interim in front of it.
Well, Spencer and I have gone for intercontinentals, interim, continentals, all sorts of different belts. I think the only reason that they have them, well, for the governing bodies, obviously, and for fighters, is just to get a rung on the ladder. Really, we want a world championship or we don't.
Absolutely.
I mean, listen, we look at Caballero, who's a WBC interim champion.
Super fighter.
And people talk about the form that he's on. Where does he fit into this? Because he's now that guy that was like Martin Piccoli, where he's now the who needs him, who wants him club, unless I've got to fight him because of the run that he's on. And, this guy's not even being talked about. You're going talking about Joseph Parker and saying, listen, he deserves his opportunity. What about Caballero?
Caballero's turning everyone over.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal form, undefeated and winning and looking good doing it.
Well, look, I mean, we'll talk more about the fighters in a different part of the show. But let's talk about the governing bodies and look at some of the rankings that we've got in terms of the credibility. The argument is being put forward, and it's a self-serving argument from Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh about the fact it's broken. And to some extent, maybe they've got some point because they've come along and fixed it and elevated it to the position of what it could be, rather than what the promoters previously have presided over and the governing bodies have presided over previously, which is not making fights, constant difficulties between promoters being able to put people in a ring, and broadcasters at odds with one another about who's going to show the fights. So there is an element of what they're saying has resonance. But when you look at the rankings, and I see people like, with due respect, Lawrence Okoli, who I like very much as a person, but find it difficult to take anything serious, that you've won a Bridgerweight title, and of course you won the Cruiserweight title, I understand that, but you lost it, and you have one fight, one round in the heavyweights, and you're number one in one of the marquee belts. And with due respect to Derek, who I like a lot as well, and we know that we all like, is number 3 in the WBO. Doesn't this fuel the argument that's being put forward by Turkey and Dana White that boxing is broken, or does it not?
No, I think that, look, there's heavyweight rankings there, and if you look through those rankings, most of the fighters are sort of in those top 10, the same sort of names and whatever. And I think that, it's just the way that it runs and the way that it is. And Lawrence Okoli...
Sorry, I got it wrong. Derek's number 2 in the IBF,
yes,
not number 3 in the WBO.
Yeah. And he's earned his right to be there, I suppose. You're looking at the names that are there, and you're going, like, if you look at the top names, and you've got, like, obviously Oleksandr Usyk, Tyson Fury, you don't know what he's doing. You've got Anthony Joshua, Martin Bakole, Justice Heaney, and all those. You look at all those, and they're all in that top 10 there or thereabouts.
But it's not.
Lawrence Okoli's been elevated.
Spence. You look at the WBA.
But Simon,
do you know
Fabio's
what's
number 1.
Hang on a minute. Do you know what's nonsense? That boxing is broken. No, it's not, right?
I
His
totally
Excellency in the last year and a half has turned the boxing landscape around. We're getting the best fighting the best, the great cards, OK? What's happened here? Dana White now wants to become involved. This is fantastic for our sport, that more investment comes in, more changes are going to be made. Terrific. It's always been a little bit of the Wild West, the governing bodies, because we love the unpredictability of it all.
But everyone, forever and a day, was constantly talking about the fights that never happened. So if there's an element of Turki Al-Sheikh has fixed that problem, by the definition of fix, doesn't it mean it was broken? And if he decides to depart, and ultimately this new engine room of the Ring magazine being the wrapper, and decides that Saudi money isn't for the longer term, won't it go back to what it was before, which was the vision of these fights never really manifesting themselves? Undisputed is coming around once every quarter of a century. The best fighters not getting into fights in their pomp, because it'll go back to what was the broadcasters being at odds with one another because one promoter's indexed to another promoter. Won't it go back to what it was before?
Spencer and I have lived through decades of this sort of stuff. When we didn't get Lewis Bowe, we didn't get Hatton and Witter, we didn't get Froch and Calzaghe, we got Mayweather and Pacquiao way too late. We got Brook and Khan way too late. Now, in the last 18 months, we've had some phenomenal fights. So we're in a great period.
But that's the part of the business that has been fixed and was broken. But when you're talking about
the only part.
No, it's not. No, we're talking about the 4 governing bodies, which Turkey is still keeping with this new system they're coming in with. It's not like they're going to go, right, we're going to have this league and there's going to be no governing bodies.
But
there.
it seemed at first.
He's already, that's what he was trying to. No, that's what he was trying to do. But the governing bodies are still involved in this.
Well, no, what he's doing,
he's keeping the governing bodies involved.
What he's suggested that he's not in. Turkey will say one thing to garner attention and another in a different conversation. In one conversation, he'll turn around and say that he's going to destroy certain aspects of the boxing fraternity, whether it's the broadcasting relationships, because they're dead now and he's going to own all the broadcasting rights and everyone's going to fight for him. In another breath, he'll turn around and say that ultimately you can't have the Canelo with his WBC belt in a picture because he's launching a new boxing league of himself and he's going to destroy conventional wisdom. Then the next breath, he'll turn around and say, no, I'm not going to do that. There's room and space for everybody. They will want to own what they will want to own. And if the WBC and the WBA and the IBF fall by the wayside because all the best fighters are currently fighting in the framework of the ring framework that we're suggesting is going to be the case with the Saudis, that is what will happen.
Yeah, but that's maybe the long-term goal, but that won't happen overnight.
He wants to own the sport.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that won't happen overnight, Simon. These governing bodies are still going to play a big part.
He's already the number one
in the league.
He's already the number one, His Excellency, in the sport in terms of power and what he's done. OK, so he brings Dana White in. What he said was he's given Dana White the flag, and they're going to crush. Crush is a big, strong word. Then he comes out and says, "Yeah, the governing bodies we're still going to have that. We're still going to have everybody." My guess is that they do want to do that UFC type, the round thing. So there is one belt. The genius was to buy the Ring magazine because that's got the history.
That's the wrapper.
So we have that in there. But this is, as Spencer says, going to take a long time to manifest. And in the meantime, we're still getting some of the best fighting the best.
So just out of curiosity, it took him 18 months less than that, before everyone was proclaiming him as the face and vision of boxing, right? And now we're suggesting that it's going to take him a long time to dismantle the existing framework. The reasons why the Saudis have picked boxing and gone after it hell for leather is because they couldn't do it in golf because the structure was too resolute. They can't do it in football because the game is too structured and governed by the existing entities, but they can do it in boxing. And when I sat down 6 months ago with Eddie Hearn and called him a glorified agent, which of course was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but the fact is, what do they need you for? And he told me that, oh, hang on, they'll need us for the infrastructure, for the ability to be able to put on events. And I said, well, geez, I'm sure they can work out how to put a tent up in the long game, and they'll find the intellectual capital. And here we are now. They have the greatest showman in town in terms of Dana White, who knows how to put an event on, knows what to do, knows how to monetize it, knows how to make sure that every aspect of all the demographics of who they want to contact, whether they're cross-pollinating between sports. I think if they want to, I think they can drive a coach and horses through the existence of the WBCs, the WBAs and the IBFs and make it a one game in town inside 2 years if they want to.
Inside 2 years? Maybe. Certainly not tomorrow, but it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they want to do that. And the governing bodies. And Frank Warren's,
I don't see it as inside
Frank Warren's
2 years,
got a good point as well.
Much more than that.
But Frank's got a good point. We do want one champion. That would be great. But Frank's got a good point. In opportunities for fighters, everyone wants to become a world champion. At the moment, you've got 4 chances. And
I agree with that too, because the argument then becomes, if we've got this revolution, spirit of revolution in our heads about what this league might consist of, and the best fighting the best, right? But fighters don't fight. The best fighters don't fight more than once or twice a year.
Yeah.
So you're still going to have this dearth of challenges if you haven't got this plethora of opportunities for them to seemingly fight for meaningful straps.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's why I think the WBO, IBF, WBA, WBC, they still exist and there is still something there. The league could be something totally different and they've still got their eyes on things. The Ring magazine's a very important thing. Could that be what they're fighting for? The Ring magazine belt in the league? And it's just another opportunity for fighters to go there when they've got these world titles, etc. I think that, look, it's good for the sport.
I would like the WC getting a great big kick up the arse. I mean, I think they are. Piss poor organisation that have not made their mandatories happen, that have created ridiculous scenarios inside their structure that I think are poor. And I think that there is a great deal of benefit in discarding them.
It is and always has been a compelling Wild West. And if it can be put under one umbrella, fantastic. UFC was a phenomenal role model, a state of thing that everybody got into because it was storytelling, best fought the best, fantastic. But there's amateurs, there's grassroots, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of infrastructure. I get that. We did start with one belt though, didn't we? WBC.
No, listen, and to build boxing from the ground up after, in the current state where boxing is now, it's always been historically.
Yes.
To build it from the ground up doesn't take 2 years. It takes a lot longer than that. The UFC model that Dana White took over at that time, it was already broken. It was a smaller model, and he built it to what it was.
The challenge to Dana as an excellency is Spencer says it's not going to take. You've got to do it within 2 years. Maybe they will. I'll tell you what, I'll go back to it again. The Ring magazine acquisition is the genius stroke.
Absolutely.
Genius.
Absolutely. Interesting times.
Very.